Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Youthcast, episode 5 of the New Town School podcast. I'm Sanjana.
And I am Riyansh. Today, we have the honor of hosting someone whose journey not only redefines the idea of perseverance, but also proves that limits can be self created.
Our guest today is an entrepreneur, a mother, and one of India's most accomplished ultramarathon runners. She's the fastest Indian woman to complete the legendary Comrades Marathon, an 89-kilometer ultramarathon in South Africa.
She has completed many world major marathons, represented India internationally, and has done all of this while managing a medical clinical center in Kolkata.
Her journey is not just about medals and records, it's about resilience and courage, and rising up even after being told that she might never run again.
An injury tried to hold her back, doubts surrounded her, and limits were placed before her. But a true champion is not defined by comebacks. Please, let's welcome Mrs. Anjali Sarvakia.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. Thank you so much, Riyansh, for having me on your podcast.
So, Mom, what makes your journey so inspiring is that you started running at an age when most athletes consider slowing down. So, what motivated you to take that very first step?
So, as a child, I had seen the Olympics on my black and white TV, and I always wondered how can a human being run for 42 kilometers or run for 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 30 minutes continuously. And I was marveled by it. So life went by, and very soon I was in my 40s. My daughter was preparing for her certain exams to go abroad and study, and I knew I'd have some free time. So I told her that I want to run, and I want to run long distance. But I don't have the confidence because I don't go to a gym, I don't have the right shoes. So she told me, Mom, have faith in yourself. You want to do something. It's something that will give you happiness. You don't have to think of the world. Do it for yourself. And on her insistence and her encouragement, I enrolled for a half marathon. And I was lucky. I came third. Winning is it's a great high. But apart from winning and coming third, I had enjoyed running the 21 kilometers immensely. And that's when I knew that, yes, I want to run more. I want to train in a proper, organized way, structured way, and pursue this as a very serious passion.
So, ma'am, when you started running in 2015, did you ever imagine that this journey would take you to the international ultramarathons?
Absolutely not. I was just enjoying my journey by the day, and I had small goals that, yes, from 21K I want to run a 42K, which is a full marathon. I want to run in Mumbai because running the Mumbai marathon is also an aspirational dream for many of us in Kolkata. So I was just taking it by the day and by the race, and I had small goals. I would strive to achieve my small goals, and in this process of just working on my immediate goals, bigger things came in my life, and bigger races and more prestigious races came along my journey, and that's how it evolved.
So, Mom, what according to you in the early days was more challenging, the physical training or believing in yourself?
Actually, neither, because I was enjoying running so much. I was enjoying the feeling I got when I completed a training session. Sometimes the training didn't go the way I'd planned, and it would be a bad training day. But it's also a training day, it's better than zero training. So, working on myself physically or mentally was not hard. I was just enjoying the process so much that I never saw any pain or felt any discomfort there.
Ma'am, in 2017, you had suffered a severe injury after which the doctors told that you might never run again. So, what was going on in your mind during such a difficult period? It's not
I was very dejected because I was running very well at that time. I had built up good speed, good endurance, good strength, and everything had to come to a stop because I was injured. I was badly injured, and some doctors said that I can't run, I will never run. But I chose to believe in myself and believe in steady progress. So I started proper, organized scientific rehab, and I started doing more strength training. I didn't push the process, I didn't look for shortcuts. I was patient, and I just got back to jogging first. First doing brisk walking, then jogging, then running. I was in no hurry. I did not feel any pressure that no, if I'm missing a race, I'm missing out. No, what's meant for me will happen for me. I just have to believe in myself and go on in the journey of recreating my strength and rebuilding my body. And that's what I did. And over some time, I recovered and I was able to go back to high-end running.
That is really nice to
Huh.
hear. But what do you think changed internally that helped you return stronger than before?
I think what happened is I realized that something like this, an injury in sport, can happen to anyone. And giving up or stopping should not be an option, because if I quit once, I'll quit in every aspect of my life. It's very easy and tempting to quit, especially when your dreams are shattered temporarily, or you feel that you cannot do anymore, or circumstances around your passion are so difficult. But if one chooses the easy way out, which is quitting, then quitting can be an addictive bad habit. So I chose to just patiently work on my fitness and work on my mind. And I realized that the only way that I will be happy is if I recover and I'm strong mentally and I come back to what I want to do. So I should not let one failure or one injury define me or my journey or put an end to my journey.
Ma'am, that was really inspiring. So, ma'am, today when you say on the other side of fear lies victory, what does that mean from your personal experience?
So, how I feel is all of us have certain limits that we place for ourselves. We feel that this is all I can do, this is my max, this is my best. We forget that that is a limit that we have put on our own selves, in our own minds. It's self-created. There is no biology telling us that this is all you can do. Maybe someone else, somebody's parent or somebody's instructor or someone has told some child that this is your best, you can't do better than this. But that's not really true, because we can go as far as we want to only if we are willing to make that extra effort, to work harder, to be more consistent and more persevering, and if we can train our minds to endure a little more. So when I run a 10-kilometer race, why is it that the moment I cross the finish line, I collapse? I feel I can't run anymore. It's because I've told myself that your destination is at 10 kilometers. So my mind at that time tells my body, okay, 10 kilometers is done, you can't do anymore, and the body collapses. But had I told my mind that no, you have to run an 11-kilometer race, maybe my mind would not stop me at 10 kilometers. So it is a limit that I create for myself. So why should I let that limit define me?
True.
And on the other, so your question was about?
On the other side of fear lies victory. So, ma'am, have you ever felt afraid before that you couldn't do something?
Yeah. So this fear, so what happens is when I'm training, I'm hard to run at, I'm scared to run at a certain pace because fast paces hurt.
They do.
But if I suppose I have to run at a speed of say 13 kilometers an hour, and I'm currently at 12 kilometers an hour. If I feel that going to 13 is going to hurt me, then I should build up to it. I should first run at 12.1 and 12.2, slowly come to 13. And when I come to 13, I will see that because I have trained myself in a proper structured way, that particular pace is not hard for me. Only because I have chosen to face that discomfort. I have chosen to embrace that pain. When you embrace that pain, when you are willing to embrace the discomfort, that discomfort ceases to have any power over you. It ceases to scare you. So because I train my mind and body to run at a speed of 13, I can run at that pace, and then that speed will cease to have any difficulty for me. So on the other side is victory. Then I have won. Then I am free and I can run faster because I have chosen to embrace that discomfort and that pain that fear brings with it.
So fear should serve as a motivator in this case. It should push us forward.
So, so giving that fear so much importance is useless because that will become our limit. So if I choose to go beyond the fear, if I choose to embrace the discomfort that will come along the way in making me stronger, so that once I reach that barrier, I can cross it. On the other side of that pain is victory. After that, when I'm running at a speed of 13, I am not in discomfort. It has become a comfortable speed for me.
Very true.
So, ma'am, as you told, the progress must be slow. It cannot happen quickly. You cannot think that you can achieve 13 km per hour just after 12, right?
Absolutely.
So, many students tend to give up when they don't see quick results. So, how long did it take for you to see real improvement in your journey?
So real improvements are small, they are minute, and they come in various ways. There are different aspects of training. There's a physical aspect, there's a mental, like a mental part to it as well. Because when we train for long distance running, you have to build speed, you have to build endurance, you have to build muscular strength. The body, the muscular structure has to be able to withhold that speed and that distance. Apart from it all, there's a mental component where your mind has to be willing to embrace all the discomfort that comes in the course of this training. Then you have to build up grit that you can sustain high paces, maybe bad weather, and still be persistent with your race or your training run. So different aspects take time to get strong and make us a good runner. So it's a continuous process. I cannot define one particular moment where I felt strong. Yes, at different stages, I felt I was strong enough to perform at a certain level. But if I want to keep improving, that level keeps on moving up.
So, ma'am, amongst all of the major marathon races that you have run, was there any particular race according to you that transformed you the most as a person?
So, to be honest, the World Major Marathons were a great experience because they are wonderful races. We are running with thousands of exceptionally good runners, and the course is a very beautifully charted out course, and there's a lot of camaraderie along the course. But the World Major Marathons were not such that they created a lasting impression on me. It was more so the race that I ran in South Africa, the Comrades, which taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about humanity and about how I wish to lead my life. And I would like to share a small experience connected to the Comrades. The Comrades is an 87 to 89 kilometer, very brutal race that is held in South Africa over 5 major hills and many unknown small hills. And I ran the up run, which is basically an uphill run from Durban to Pietermaritzburg. Pietermaritzburg is the place where Gandhiji was thrown out of the train. And that's where the race ends. Now, South Africa does not have very tall trees, it has small trees, and this particular race is out there where it's very hot, there is no shade. And survival is what most of us are looking for in that race, just to manage and survive and reach the finish line somehow. And sometimes the water stations are very far apart. So there was this one stage between the 40th and 60th kilometer where I needed water and I couldn't find a good water station, or I missed the right water stations where I could pick up water. And I was running with a group of people, because in the Comrades you're never alone. There are so many people running that you're always running in some group of the other. So I was running in this group where a lot of South Africans were with me. and I was parched, and I knew if I didn't get water, I'd have to stop. So I looked around, there was no water station. Then I looked at the guy running next to me. He had two little tubes of water. There they give water in small plastic packs, and you just suck it and throw it away. So he was holding two of those tubes of water for himself, of course. I kept looking at him, and without me asking him, just seeing me beg through my eyes, he handed me his water. I was greedy, I was parched, I grabbed it, I drank it up. And I thanked him, but he was also very parched. And we carried on. I don't know what that water cost him, because he gave me his water. I went on to become India's fastest comrade runner. I ran a really good time. I don't know what happened to him, what time he ran, because I moved on. When I got that water, I got a new shot of life, a new energy and strength, and I sped on, leaving him there. When I look back on the race, I realized that I had not been very fair, because I had taken his water. And I don't know whether he did not finish the race or he cramped because he didn't get water. And I felt that that was a good deed that he had done to me. And that was a favor that he had done as a human to me, because he's also a competitor. And that water is priceless for him. And it taught me that if I have taken a favor which is so important from someone, I have to pass it on. So now, whenever I run, if someone asks me for water or gels or any food that I have whilst running, and I know it's really important for me, I will still give it to the person asking me for it, because I feel I owe it to the other person, since I have taken something which has given me so much. Had I not got that water, I might have not finished the race. So it is my duty to pass on the favor. And this is something which I have learned through my sport. We all hear about it, but not all of us implement it. But since the sport has given me so much, I have made it my duty to pass on the favor in any way in life that I can now, because that's how life should be.
So, ma'am, from the experience that you shared, I also remembered something else from my academic career. There are many students and young adults, I'm sure not just you, who constantly compare themselves with their peers, be it for marks, academics, sports performance, whatever the case. And what advice would you like to give to such people who constantly compare themselves with others?
They are being very hard on themselves. I cannot say that I don't, we all do it, but it is a very useless thing to do, and it's a waste of time, because I can only do what my body can do, and my circumstances are not like somebody else's. We are all unique. My qualities, my flaws are all unique to me, and my journey is unique to me. I have to live my best life. If I keep comparing to someone else, I am trying to lead their life, which is biologically impossible. So if I have to improve or be happy or satisfied, if I focus on just being better in my own choices and my chosen profession or chosen line of work or my school or academics, then only will I get better. But by constantly comparing, I will just take away from what could have been productive to me.
Yes.
Nice.
I'm coming back to the Comrades Marathon. You were the fastest Indian woman to complete it. What was going on in your mind in the last few kilometers?
Oh, I was in so much of pain, Sanjana, that survival was the only thing on my mind. And like I said, I wanted food, I wanted water, and I wanted to sit. So I was just dreaming of the finish line and nothing else, and trying to just reason with the pain, because every part of my body, I think even my hair must have been paining, because everything was hurting so much that it was just a constant battle between my mind and my body that just hold on, the finish line is right here. And surprisingly, when I reached the finish line, all the pain went away.
A satisfaction must have come.
So that's the power of the mind. The mind says, oh, you're in pain. But why is it that the moment the finish line is in sight or just maybe 10 meters away, the pain goes? Because it's a barrier that I've imposed on myself. Had the race been, say, a kilometer long, my body would have held on. So that's the magic of the finish line.
And was it more of a mental battle than a physical one?
In any race, it's always more of a mental battle, because a sensible person will enter a race, a long distance race, only after training. So the physical body is usually well prepared to take on what the race will offer and to take on the speed that the runner has decided to run at. So there will be pain, there will be discomfort, that is inevitable. The willingness to embrace that discomfort is what defines the runner and defines whether the runner will reach their target or not. So I think it's more of a mental battle for a trained runner than not, because the pain will be there. It's like when you sign up for a certain exam, to do a certain course, you know that you have to study XYZ amount, right? You know it's going to be a tough exam. And are you willing to sign up to that training, to that study? Because actually doing that hard work is not tough, because it's not that you have to do the 50 hours of hard work in one sitting. You're going to do it consistently. So you will train your mind to gain all that knowledge, right? That knowledge is going to become a part of you over time. So when you sit for the exam, you have trained yourself. You are well prepared for the exam. It is the mental battle that, am I willing to do that training? Fear destroys more dreams than failure
Yes.
has ever done.
Succeed, one must fail.
Yeah, and a lot of people feel that, oh, I cannot do science, I cannot do, say, computer, or I'm not good enough to be a doctor. It's the fear. Because once you started your study in science, you'll get there. But you have mentally come to this decision, you have accepted that, yes, I am willing to commit. That willingness to commit is what is important.
Ma'am, how important is discipline and consistency to you?
I think that is the basis of any form of success in life. Without discipline, without consistency, and without looking for shortcuts is the only way to growth. If anyone in any field of life looks for shortcuts, then a failure is their destination.
Ma'am, you manage Medsta Clinic, you're an elite athlete, and you're a mother as well. So, what does a typical day in your life look like?
It's very simple, because my life is very boring and very routine. And I think routine is really cool, because the results that routine can give you, a lot of exciting things or so-called exciting things cannot. I run in the morning, I wake up really early, I run in the morning, I'm in my workplace for the better part of the day, and then evening, thrice a week, I do a strength workout, and that is my life. It doesn't move left, it doesn't move right. So that is more or less my life, and consistency is what has made me achieve my dreams, and discipline. Because if I did not have both of these aspects in my daily life, then I'm very sure that I could not have run the races I have.
Ma'am, if a student wished to pursue sports as a career, then what are the signs that parents should recognize if they wish to sign him up for early specialization?
So I strongly feel that parents should not impose their thoughts and their ideas of success or their ideas of a right sport on the child, because every child is unique. It is good to expose the child to various types of sports and see if the child enjoys sport firstly, and if sport, then which sport, and put the child in that sport. Like, I love running. I have a daughter who enjoys running, but she enjoys strength training more than running. So I pushed her in tennis, I pushed her in swimming, I pushed her in golf, but eventually she has come back to do lifting, and she is basically into hybrid athletics, which is a mix of running and CrossFit which is a lot of lifting and other kind of strength activities. So I feel that parents should firstly expose their kids to various sports, then see what the child likes doing, and then encourage the child only in that. And not feel that because he or she is a good golfer, the child should automatically take on golf. No, maybe the child is good at golf, but the child enjoys swimming. But yes, sport is healthy, but it should not be forced.
Ma'am, as students, we often are not able to maintain academics and extracurriculars. So, what is your take on effective time management?
Firstly, if if the extracurricular activity is something that the child enjoys, I think the child will want to make time for it because it's not imposed. Suppose I tell the child, apart from school, you have to play a sport and you have to play the guitar. Now, she does not enjoy playing the guitar. Somehow, she will come up with excuses to avoid that guitar lesson. So, it should not be imposed. It should be something the child looks forward to. Because then only will the child really grow in that particular activity. Commuting can become an issue because nowadays there's so much traffic on the roads. So time management can be difficult. So of course we have to look for places which the child can practice their sport or practice their music, like go for their music lesson or whatever they are wanting to do as an extracurricular. It should be close to home. So to reduce commuting, so it should be optimizing their time, and the child should get some time for rest also, because recovery and unwinding from a hard school day, sport and whatever extracurricular they are doing is important. Then a bit of social life is important. The child should get time to play with friends, at least on the weekend. Reading is also quite important. I don't mean social media, and I don't mean books. It's very important for the child to read also. So it's important to find the right balance, but there should not be pressure. The parents should not pressurize the child or compare the child that, XYZ child is playing cricket, doing studies, going for tuition, and playing guitar, and also singing. So every child is unique. So let the child be on their own timeline. Just optimize for the child as per the child's needs and requirements.
Ma'am, how important is nutrition when it comes to training?
We are what we eat. If you're going to eat garbage, the result is going to be garbage. So nutrition is imperative because our body is made up of all the food that we eat. And eating a balanced meal is crucial. Nowadays, fast food and all these rich foods are very much in vogue. A lot of kids get very tempted to eat ultra-processed food, which is so harmful. So the child has to be made aware. Just telling the child that, don't eat potato chips, it's bad for you. I don't think that's good enough. Explain to the child that why is it bad for you? That food is coming out of a packet. The shelf life of the food is 6 months. Obviously, there are preservatives, chemicals that are going into that food. The potato is a natural product. And why should we only eat natural things and not foods which are laden with preservatives? That has to be explained to the child. So what is bad about that potato chip coming out of that packet? That oil, the chemicals, that extra sodium. Once we explain to the child will see that yes, why should I put in that extra oil and that extra chemical into my body when I don't need it? So if children are explained, children will totally understand and also come to value the fact that real food is good food. Nowadays, children say, I want good food. By good food, they mean fast food, junk food. So the child has to be taught that good food is real food, is natural food. If nature didn't grow it, if nature didn't give it to you, chances are it's laden with chemicals. So the rice we eat, the sabzi we eat, the dal we eat, the spices we add, these are all natural. But if I'm going to buy that processed khichdi that I can put in the microwave for 2 minutes and then eat, and I can eat it for the next 6 months because it's not going to rot, obviously that's processed. So natural food is what will give me good results, maintain my health, maintain my body, make me live in a healthy way, make me live in such a way that I can make my dreams come true. Maybe I'm a very good artist and I earn a lot of money, but if I don't have health, what am I going to do with that money? And children, if they explain this, that your body, your health is your greatest wealth, they will understand.
So, ma'am, we were talking about how social media is a very crucial part of our lives right now. So, it has its pros and cons. So, how can a child develop mental toughness from a young age with the pressure and social media going all around?
So that is a very big challenge because social media is all empowering. No one is spared from it. In your language, people without social media get FOMO, right?
I never
Okay,
was.
so my daughter's
I don't
27.
have,
That's wonderful. My
Yes,
daughter's
that-
27. I've learned this phrase from her. FOMO, fear of
Yes.
missing out.
It
Okay,
is very true. It happens.
right? It's natural, we're human. So the best way would be that the child always be reminded that she or he has her goals, and they have to focus on their goals, and their goals will get them the happiness, the satisfaction, the growth, or the destination that they are looking for. So what I have always done, I choose a goal which is slightly outside my barrier of comfort, and I strive towards it. As I'm striving towards that particular so-called goal, that goal seems to move further and further out because I'm getting stronger, because I'm consistently working towards my goal. And the stronger I get, the further my goal gets. And this is the process of excellence. So if we can train children to focus on their personal excellence, even though social media is so powerful and so tempting, I'm 52, but even I get sucked into it sometimes. But I have to remind myself, no, stay in your lane, focus on your destination. My competition is in the mirror, and I want to like what I see every day in the mirror. If I keep telling myself that, then social media will not have much of an impact from me. I will use it definitely, but to gain positively, to get inspiration from it, because there are many people who have walked the same path that I am on and have succeeded and are much better than me. So I will use it to gain knowledge from them, to gain from their experiences, gain in a positive way from social media.
What is that one piece of advice you would like to give to parents whose children are afraid to try new things or step out of their comfort zones?
I would tell the parent that please encourage your child to dream, because it is very important that the child have their own dream. Encourage your child to have goals, their own goals. Don't impose your goals or your dreams on them firstly, because that destroys their creativity and their individuality. And every child is an individual and unique. And help them dream big. Expose them to different things. Don't put the child in a box, or don't tell the child, oh, I think you're good at golf. No, let the child discover. Maybe the child is good at golf, but the child wants to be an artist. Let the child do art, and like you try and expose the child to various types of art. Let the child find herself or himself. And when the child is exposed to a lot more in what they enjoy, they will develop goals, they will have dreams, and encourage the child in those dreams. And then the child will be willing to step out of their comfort zone. People are scared, kids are scared to step out of their comfort zone because they are afraid. They don't want to embrace the discomfort, or they feel that my parent will be upset with me if I do what they don't think is right. So the parent should not impose their rights and wrongs or their thoughts of rights and wrongs on the child. What is right for the parent may not be right for the child. The parent may be a runner, but the child wants to be a lifter. I may feel the best life comes if you run for 2 hours a day. My daughter feels the best life comes if you run for 1 hour and you lift for 1 hour. So let the child embrace her dreams, and then she will be happy to step out of her comfort zone.
Ma'am, back to running. So if I, or anybody for that matter, were to start running from, say, tomorrow, so what would be the safest and most structured way to start?
I feel for anybody at any age, the safest way is to first do brisk walking, then throw in a bit of jogging. So just walk and jog, and then throw in a bit of running. So walk, jog, run. Very soon, you will be just jogging and running. And if you are consistent enough and you're willing to embrace the discomfort that comes along with running, very soon you'll be only running. And you can take it on from there. You can run long distances, you can run even longer distances, you can run fast, you can run slow, you can run hills. But along with that, it's important to also do a bit of strength training, because it's a muscular structure that takes on all the beating. And the base and the foundation of any healthy sport is nutrition. So eating a balanced diet, not any extreme diets, natural food, proper hydration, that is water, drinking adequate water, and sleep. Giving our body good amount of rest, at least 7 to 8 hours of good sleep, so that the body can recover. So we don't really grow, or we don't get faster when we run. We get faster when we recover. Because when we come back to the run, we are faster. So the body recovers and comes back stronger. So rest is very important. Just being in a hurry and trying to put in everything in one go is not the best recipe.
And ma'am, lastly for this segment, how do you personally remain so consistent even when you feel that your motivation might just be fading?
So there was a period in my life for a few years where I had some medical issues, due to which I lost all motivation to run. So I stopped. I did not run any race. I would do a bit of training, but I had lost all motivation to really push myself. But that is because I was unwell. But the important thing being that when I was not motivated, I did not force myself. Because anything forced will not be good. If I force myself to do something, chances are I will not perform well. I will not give it my best. So my body needed that rest. I gave it the rest. Then when I recovered, my medical issues are sorted, I have started running again, and I'm running well again because I want to run. So when someone is not motivated, up to a certain point, it is good to try and push the person. But if the person genuinely does not want to do something, force is not the answer. It has to come naturally. So in sport, the motivation is normally coming from that person, from that sports person. Otherwise, that person will not perform. So it has to be self-motivation to a large extent, because that is what will allow me to break my own barriers and to embrace the pain.
Ma'am, we now move on to our rapid fire round. Short and spontaneous answers, please.
Ma'am, morning run or evening run?
Oh, morning, anytime.
Ma'am, the toughest race you've ever done?
I ran a 100-kilometer race in Croatia where I represented our country. And a month before that race, I had got dengue. And I was very sick, and I had 2 blood transfusions also. India was sending a team to Croatia for the first time. And we were going to take part in a 100-kilometer race actually for the first time. And there were 6 men and me, 1 woman. I was the only woman in the team. So I didn't want to let my country down. I didn't want to let my team down. So despite being so sick, I ran that race and I suffered immensely. So that was the toughest race. But having said that, all the pain vanished at the finish line.
Yes.
So, but yes, that was the toughest race for me.
Ma'am, do you have any favorite recovery routine?
Yes, it is sleep. Because I think any hard physical activity, sleep is very important, and that helps the body recover in the best way.
One word that defines your mindset.
Grit. I have a lot of grit. I am willing to embrace the pain. I cannot say happy. No one's happy to embrace it. One has to be willing to embrace that discomfort and willing to do those hard, consistent workouts on repeat and lead a disciplined life on repeat. And that is what I believe in, and that is who I am. So, grit is what defines me.
Is there any quote you live by?
I don't know if they're quotes, but there are certain phrases that I do live by. So I'll share a few of them. One is stronger than yesterday. I can't be the best I want to be in one day. I can't be the best that is out there. Maybe there is someone who's my age and much better than me. All I can be is stronger than yesterday. And I live by that. If I can just be stronger than yesterday, I have executed the perfect workout, I've had the perfect day. And that is the perfect recipe for me, because all I can do is small, steady improvements. It's the small habits or the small changes in my bad habits which will make me a better person. So, stronger than yesterday is one of my favorite quotes or favorite phrases, and that is what I strive to do. I don't look for shortcuts. I take the stairs, not the elevator, because health lies there. Another phrase I live by is this too will pass. So whether I'm having a lot of fun and it's the best day of my life, I know that I should enjoy it while it lasts. I should not feel guilty that, oh, I am having so much of fun, or I'm eating such good food. I should enjoy it while it lasts, because it's temporary. But so is pain, so is bad times, so is discomfort. If I am running a race and I know I'm hurting, I want to give up. What keeps me going is I know that this discomfort is only for the next maybe 5 kilometers. After that, the race is over. So even that discomfort will pass. I just have to endure. So whether it's something good or something bad, nothing is temporary. We have to live in the moment. So live in the moment. This too will pass, and stronger than yesterday is what I live by.
Ma'am, one last question for this segment. Do you practice meditation or listen to anything before you go for running?
To me, my running is meditation, and I have a few mantras which are all positive, which keep tumbling in my mind when I run. I have yet to come across anybody or experience it in my own running. If I'm thinking of negative things, if I'm thinking of something bad, can I run?
No.
I can't. Can I push myself?
No.
I can't. I may be really well trained, and if I go for a race and I'm thinking, oh, I wish something bad happens to that runner, I wish something bad happens to this particular person I'm jealous of. If I'm focusing on anything negative, I cannot run. I have to leave that race. Okay, I've never taken part in a race where I've thought negative, but I would have to stop my training just to recover from my bad thoughts. Because if I'm negative in my mind, nothing positive is going to come out of it. So to me, my meditation is my running, because I just flood myself with positive thoughts. Whether it's positive thoughts of God, which is the almighty power of the universe, whether it's positive thoughts of gratitude, because we all have so much to be thankful for, grateful for. So it's thoughts of gratitude, or whether it's motivating thoughts like what I just shared with you about how I want to be stronger than yesterday. So my form of meditation is running. It's my movement meditation. And that's what keeps me going, and that's what helps me run long distance.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was genuinely, truly a pleasure to talk to you. This conversation has certainly been an enlightening one. because your journey has shown that courage, grit, and self belief are the key to achieving success.
Thank you so much, Riyansh. Glad you enjoyed the talk with me. And I'm very impressed by both of you as well. Y'all are confident and y'all are doing a great job with your youth cast. Thank you,
Thank you,
Sanjana.
ma'am. Thank you for sharing your experiences and motivating not just athletes but also students like us who are yet to find our own paths. If
To-
there is one thing that I'm definitely taking from today is that to be the best version of ourselves and only ourselves.
Agreed. Could not put it better.
Absolutely, because we are all unique. And the best version of me may be the best of the country. I don't know. But I can only strive to be the best version of me.
To all our listeners, remember, fear is temporary, but regret lasts longer. So, take the initiative to take that first step towards your dream.
This was Youthcast episode 5 of the New Town School podcast.
Thank you for listening. Keep believing, keep striving, and keep moving forward with purpose.
If you liked this session, don't forget to like and share this video with your friends.
And subscribe as well.
Thank you.